Hey, welcome to Wednesday. I feel like it's kind of like I was just talking to Donald. I feel like it's the last week of school, and folks they become minimalists in terms of their willingness to work. They're just like, I just want to get through this and get to the summer. For us, it's like, man, I want to just get through this so I can get back to some sort of routine. Church on Sunday, restaurants opening. Well, you know that we are gathering back together on the 7th. And here, the question has been raised, are we making it mandatory to wear masks? No. If you feel you need to wear a mask, wear a mask. Hopefully, by putting our worship outdoors, we minimize the need to do that. And so we're not mandating that, nor when we come back in the facility will we mandate that. That is a personal choice. That's why we have the distancing. So we're not making it mandatory to wear masks. Here is the quarantine motivated tweet. Mom writes, she says, my kids have been watching 15 minutes of TV for 3 hours now. Have you been there? Okay, you got 15 minutes left. And then you look at your watch, and the 15 minutes that you gave your kids as an ultimatum has turned into 3 hours. The question for discussion. Remember yesterday we asked, what's the best thing about being a kid? There's so much great about being a kid. Today we're going to ask what's the best thing about being an adult? Be interesting to see what your kids say. What's the best thing you think about being an adult? Well, we are continuing to look at lessons from the life of Joseph. Yesterday, what we looked at is all of Egypt is now owned by Pharaoh. The nation has looked to him as their provider, while the Israelite shepherds in the fields of Goshen, well, they flourished. And the reason is because they've looked to God as their provider. Jacob, the father of the nation of 70, he's about to pass away. He has lived 17 years in Egypt now. And that makes Joseph approximately 56. And Joseph was 39 when he made the reunion with Jacob possible. So Joseph 56, Jacob about ready to die. Now, before Jacob passes away, Joseph wants Jacob to bless his sons. That story is in chapter 48, verses 1 through 22. So push the pause button. Read chapter 48, verses 1 through 22. Do that now. When you read this, it's really a pretty sweet moment. Joseph acknowledges that he never thought that he would see Jacob alive again. And now he marvels at the fact that he's not only getting a chance to see Jacob, but Jacob even has the opportunity to meet his own sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. So Joseph brings his sons, Manasseh, the firstborn, and Ephraim, the youngest, to bless them. I want to read it in chapter 48, verses 15 and 16. So it says, and he blessed Joseph and said, the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac walked, the God who has been my shepherd all my life to this day, the angel who has redeemed me from evil, bless the lads. Now he's pointing to Manasseh and Ephraim. And may my name live on in them, and the names of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and may they grow in multitude in the midst of the earth. What a beautiful blessing. And then he begins to pray for Manasseh and Ephraim. And then Joseph is observing this basically symbol as he's putting his hands on his sons. And then Joseph's like, wait a minute. You're crossing your hands. That's not how it works. The biggest blessing's supposed to go to his oldest son, Manasseh. The second blessing is supposed to go to Ephraim, the youngest. That's the way it works. And you've got your arms crossed. You've got your right hand of blessing on the youngest, and you've got your left hand on Manasseh. And Joseph's like, whoa, 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 this isn't working out the way I'd planned. Now think about this. Even though Joseph has experienced, God doesn't always work that way, because Joseph himself was younger than his brothers. And you could easily argue that Joseph experienced the right hand of blessing over his brothers, even though he was much younger than his brothers. Jacob himself was the youngest. Esau was his older brother. Now, yes, God had a hierarchical structure. He had a hierarchical system. But God's not always bound by his own system. God has always and will always do what we do not expect. He does it so that he alone takes credit and he alone is responsible. God's not bound to use the eldest as his leader. God uses the one whose heart is sold out to him, who can make the most impact. That's the way God works. It was what had happened to Joseph. Joseph wasn't the oldest, and yet Joseph didn't even recognize God's pattern when it came to his own son. Now, there's a saying that God doesn't always call the most qualified, but he always qualifies the one he calls. Example through history, King David. When it came time to select the successor to King Saul, it was going to come from Jesse's household. Jesse had several sons. David was the youngest son. And David's father, Jesse, didn't even ask David to come to his selection show. God looks for the Cinderella-esque story whose heart is totally sold out to him. So that's why he says, no, Jacob, he himself was the youngest. Ephraim, the youngest. Joseph, the youngest. God always breaks out of this so-called protocol because he's looking for hearts that are sold out to him. So the question becomes, where's your heart? Are you looking at God like he's supposed to now bless you in the way that you want? Or are you surrendering your heart to him? You know, that's really what he wants to drive us to. Not to follow protocol. God's not bound by protocol. Okay, God, you're bound to bless me now. I jumped through your religious hoops. No, he's not. God will bless whom he blesses. God will choose whom he chooses. God will orchestrate his story the way he sees fit. And the question for us is our heart in submission to him. It's again, you go back to the garden. It's Jesus' response to the Father. Not my will, but yours be done. That's what he's asking of us. So, where's your heart? In submission to him? Or are you going to try to hold God to, well, you're supposed to, God's not supposed to do anything our way. Contemplate. Where's your heart? You may need to get alone today sometime and just question, where's my heart? Is it surrendered to God? Well, have a great rest of the Wednesday. We will see you tomorrow morning.